Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, we got a jam-packed one for you. First up, the Patriots, they make a move, and could be somebody, a man on the inside, a spy that they're signing right before the Texans divisional game. We'll get into that. Also, Texans defensive coordinator Matt Burke is getting head coach interviews, and one of his former teams that he was with is now interested in him as being their next head coach. I'll tell you who that is on today's show. And then last on today's program, CJ Stroud, he speaks on that Pittsburgh game. He talks about the struggles he had and how he's going to change that this week up against the Patriots. And speaking of the New England Patriots, our Patriots host Brett Alper said, you know what? I think I can beat you in a sub battle as well. He saw what we did up against the Steelers last week, and he said, hey, the Patriots were a different monster. So our Patriots channel, Patriots Today, challenged us to a subscriber battle. I want to kick their you-know-what's on and off the field this week. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button. We're also really close to 45,000 subscribers. You get daily videos for free, weekly watch parties. We're also going live later on today where get some great deals on a Brian Cushing giveaway. I'll tell you more about that on our live show, but make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and let's beat Patriots.
Getting ready for some football, some Texans Today party.
A sneaky signing by Mike Vrabel, and I wouldn't expect anything else. He's a smart head coach. Patriots, a smart organization, so they went ahead and signed a player to probably get intel on this Texans defense and this Texans team. We'll see how it works out for them. The player, Darrell Taylor, he was waived last week, so the Texans would be able to activate Jalen Reed. Also, didn't seem like he really had a, defined role in this defense after multiple other guys kind of stepped up on the defensive line. He played in 4 games this year for the Houston Texans, and, I don't think, for all my Stranger Things fans out there, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Patriots went out and signed Darrell Taylor to their practice squad. Now, it is important to mention it is the practice squad, so they could elevate him to play on Sunday, or he could remain on the practice squad and not be on their active roster for this divisional round matchup up against the Texans. He's good enough to probably be a rotation defensive end. I didn't think he was a bad player. I thought he was a decent signing the Texans made this past offseason, kind of, low risk, high reward player if it did turn out well. Injuries obviously stopped him from turning into a vital part of this Texans defense this year. But I do think it's a smart move by the New England Patriots because, like I said, I don't know if he gets elevated. I'm not sure if he plays on Sunday. But at the very least, he can give the Patriots some insight on this Texans team. On the defensive side, on the offensive side, he might not know exactly what the Texans are planning on doing this week, which I don't think he would. Remember, he was, waived last week before the Texans even, finished playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. But he'll probably have some insight on some of the guys on the offensive line, have some insight on maybe some of the tendencies that the Texans have with their guys up front. And with the pass rushers that they have over in New England, I don't know if he, cracks the starting lineup for them or gets on the active roster because they have their top 2 guys, Caleb on Chasen, Harold Landry. And behind them, Elijah Ponder, our Patriots host Brett Alper said he's been having actually a pretty good year for, I believe, 4 or 5 sacks on the season for Ponder. Also, Anthony Jennings is a decent backup option for them. So how many edge rushers are they going to have? But the battle in the trenches for this Texans offense is going to be one that we need to win again this week. The Texans actually did pretty good, all things considered, up against the Pittsburgh Steelers front 5, their edge rushers, their, kind of unit that they have. And the Patriots run the same base front that the Steelers do. They run a 3-4, so they have 3 defensive linemen, 2 outside linebackers who are lined up and can blitz or, back off at any instance. It's going to be a big battle in the trenches for your Houston Texans. And they're going to be a huge key to victory for this Texans team. So let me know down in the comment section, what's your confidence level in this Texans offensive line? Scale it 1 to 10. Let me know down below in the comment section, how are you feeling about this Texans offensive line? I'm at around a 7. I feel, optimistic after what we saw this past week up against the Steelers. Now, there were still some, lapses In run blocking, there were still a couple pressures that got to him, especially that flea flicker that had the extra offensive lineman in with Blake Fisher and, rookie edge Jack Sawyer was still able to get around him and get the, fumble, almost sack on C.J. Stroud. So there are some concerns with this offensive line. But overall, Ed Ingram made some great run blocks, especially in the second half. Same with Jake Andrews, Titus Howard. The interior did well. Thought Ariante Ursary held his own up against T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Trent Brown. He worries me sometimes with the, false starts and penalties, but all things considered, I thought he played pretty well up against the Steelers. So I'm at around a 7 in my confidence level for this offensive line. Now, coming up, head coach or defensive coordinator right now, Matt Burke, is getting interviews and a ton of looks around the NFL with 9 head coaching vacancies. I'll tell you who is interested in our defensive coordinator, and C.J. Stroud, he speaks on the Pittsburgh game. Before I get into all of that, couldn't do today's show, but wasn't for our amazing sponsor over at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard, but in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right with high-pressure playoff matchups like we see this weekend. And elite hoops action almost every night. The action never stops. And Prize Picks, they let you take control. If you miss fantasy football, Prize Picks, they let you play it every week. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections. And guys, it's not just football. It's basketball, hockey, it's, esports, it's MMA. It's everything that you would be interested in the sporting realm. They got you covered over on Prize Picks. And my lineup for this weekend, I'm actually using one of their newer features. It's called Stacks. You can choose one player up to 3 projections. I'm doing it with Drakius Maye. I'm going more on his interceptions, less on his pass yards. This defense, it is generational, and hopefully they can show up and show out again this Sunday in New England. Also, I think Jaden Higgins, with the Nico Collins injury stuff, he might be questionable. I'm going with Jaden Higgins more on the receiving yards, and then I don't know why. I just had a feeling, Producer Jack. I had a feeling that Dalton Schultz is going to get in the end zone. So give me the more on his rushing or receiving touchdowns. You can use my lineup or make your own. Just do it over on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All that information down in the comments and description of today's show. All right, let's talk about Matt Burke, who has been getting some interest from multiple teams. Diana Rossini reporting today the Cardinals have requested to interview Texans defensive coordinator Matt Burke per source. Burke, the play caller for the league's stingiest defense, the Texans defense, previously coached with Arizona's defensive line in 2022. So, obviously, formerly employed by the Arizona Cardinals, and it is up to Burke whether or not to take the interview. The Texans obviously still in the playoffs, still in the midst of everything. So he can, decide to delay the interview, but the Arizona Cardinals, they put out the feeler. They said, hey, we would like to interview you for our open position. And this is a job where I think Burke, if he wanted to kind of hold off and say, hey, I don't want to focus on that until the end of this season, until we're all said and done here in Houston, I would say out of all the head coaching openings, the Cardinals are probably one of the probably one of the least desirable. So I don't know if it's a pressing matter that he goes over there, but he's had reported interest now from the Cardinals, the Titans, and the Giants from different sources. So with so many openings, I think he could get more looks, and not saying that he's not good enough to get head coaching interviews. Obviously, multiple teams interested in him. He's an amazing defensive coordinator, but also you look, there's currently 9 head coaching vacancies in the NFL. So you're telling me out of all these openings, he doesn't maybe get one of them with the Cardinals, with the Titans? I don't know with the Giants. They're kind of going after, big-name guys. But if the Giants whiff on a Harbaugh, if the Giants whiff on a Stefanski and other guys that they're interested in, could their backup option be a Matt Burke? I think the more this Texans defense proves itself, the more this Texans defense goes out and has generational performances, the more this guy is going to be getting looks and might be on the move this offseason. So I want to hear from you. Predict it for me. Will Matt Burke get a head coaching job this offseason? Give me a yes. Give me a no down below in the comments section. I'm going to let you know what I have to say here in just one moment. I'm going to lean no, but I think he definitely deserves it. I said it before, I'll say it again. I think Matt Burke is a fantastic coach. And, DeMeco Ryans, he's a big trust guy. And the fact that he trusted Burke to call the defense and the defense didn't skip a beat, or probably better than that, didn't skip a beat. It probably improved a little bit after Matt Burke started calling the plays this season, and DeMeco was allowed to kind of just laissez-faire, sit back and kind of be a managerial role over the entire team. I think that deserves a noticeable look from a lot of these teams who are looking for head coaches. The only thing is, the trend is more like, oh, we're looking for offensive guys. And, with teams like the Cardinals, teams like the Titans, the Giants, I don't know what the Cardinals quarterback situation is going to be like. But with the Titans and the Giants, they have young quarterbacks. Do you want a defensive-minded head coach with those guys? It obviously worked with DeMeco Ryans and the Houston Texans, but that is something to consider whenever we're looking at Matt Burke and these head coaching vacancies. All right, last story on today's show. C.J. Stroud speaks on the Pittsburgh game. It's no secret that Stroud struggled against the Steelers. 5 fumbles, fumbled snaps, two lost fumbles. I count it as 2 fumbles. I mean, the snap fumbles, it is what it is. He also had an interception up against the Steelers, but he knows he has to play better. And this is what he had to say to Aaron Wilson regarding that Steelers game and then regarding him just having to be better. We knew on tape that they did a good job of punching at the ball while you're throwing, getting your throwing arm. So I tried to work on that throughout the week. They made plays. These playoff games, from my experience, they're going to make plays. We're going to make plays. It's all about moving forward and trying your best to flush it and keep going. We had some problems with the snaps, me catching them. Got to find a way to just catch them and take care of the ball. I just got to get it fixed. And I love that from a young quarterback taking accountability. I, for one, was a guy who was upset with Stroud, upset with the fact that all these fumbled snaps happened in the divisional round up against the Steelers. And it's a tough pill to swallow whenever you're looking at your quarterback and he's not making plays in the biggest game of the year, and he's struggling like that. It's a very tough scenario. And in my live chat, we had over 100,000 people join us for our last watch party. Hopefully we get that turnout again this weekend up against the New England Patriots. But a lot of people were saying, put in Mills. We need to bench Stroud. I was never in that boat. I never was in favor of benching C.J. Stroud because I do think he has the ability to make plays. And even with those missteps by Stroud, he still made some fantastic throws. That downfield throw and catch to Christian Kirk, it was fantastic. He was electric at certain points in that game. And, you get the good with the bad with C.J. Stroud, but I love him taking accountability. And I also like what DeMeco Ryans had to say about C.J. Stroud and basically just how he went about, managing his struggles in that game. I love that we had some bad plays that happened for C.J. and he didn't waver. You could easily go in the tank, but he didn't waver. That's what it is. He's a resilient young man who is able to bounce back. Anybody could go into the tank if you drop the ball a few times, but you keep battling. It's a 60-minute football game. You keep battling until the end, and that's what he did. He made some big throws for us, some huge throws to allow us to get into striking distance to go score. And the thing that I really pointed to, and it's funny because I posted this on social media. You can follow me at Jeremy Chugs on X, also on TikTok. But look at these numbers. Everybody was saying Drake Maye had a great game. Drake Maye looked fantastic in the divisional round. Like, what a gutsy performance by Drake Maye. And everybody was like, C.J. Stroud had one of the worst games I've ever seen. Let's look at the numbers. Completions per attempts, pretty doggone equal. Actually, Stroud had the better completion percentage out of the two, right? Yards, Maye had 18 more passing yards. He also had more rushing yards than C.J. Stroud. That is to be worth noted. Touchdown to interception ratio, 1-to-1. Same for both these guys. Quarterback rating, 86.7, 86.6. Fumbles, 2 for Stroud, 2 for Maye. Not obviously counting some of those botched snaps by C.J. Stroud in that stat, but pretty similar between C.J. Stroud and Drake Maye. And people will say, oh, well, that was Stroud's, 5th playoff game, and Drake Maye, that was his first playoff game. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Stroud is like 7 months older than Drake Maye. So, what are we talking about? It's not like Stroud is this seasoned veteran who is, 30 years old, has been in the league for 7 years. He's been in the league, one more year than Drake Maye? This is Drake Maye's 2nd year. This is C.J. Stroud's 3rd. So, it's not Stroud's fault that he's made the playoffs 3 straight years and had more playoff appearances than Drake Maye. And for anybody telling you out there that Drake Maye is this, Drake Maye, he's in the MVP conversation and pretty much had a similar game to CJ Stroud and, arguably facing a worse defense. It could be argued, which defense is harder to face, the Steelers or the Chargers. Both of them pretty good units in the AFC. But overall, I think the Stroud hate is getting blown way out of proportion, and especially when you look at the stats of him compared to Drake Maye, is it that warranted to say that, Stroud and Maye, pretty similar games, we should probably treat them a little bit kind of the same? But obviously that doesn't happen because Stroud gets a lot more hate than Drake Maye. All right, that's all I have for you on today's show, folks. You can hit me up on Twitter and TikTok, like I said, at Jeremy Chugs. And if you made it to the end of today's video, help us take down our Patriots channel. Hit that subscribe button for free Texans content all year long.